Alrighty, hello, welcome back to the Three-Handed Bandits channel. It's Nathan back with another video for you today. We're going to be unveiling the 24th ranked Atlanta Falcons in our 2023-2024 NFL season power rankings. Today we're talking about the Atlanta Falcons, like I just said. This is a team that's kind of been floating around in a bit of a purgatory mid-zone the last couple of years, and I think they're in store for another similar season. Before we get into that, though, please like, subscribe, share these videos with your friends. Stick around to see who's going to be the number one team. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. But obviously, today, as I said, we're talking about the Atlanta Falcons. This is a team that under Arthur Smith has not taken the steps forward that you'd like to see. But in year three of the regime, they're definitely going to be hoping that they will take those steps up. So let's go ahead and talk about their offseason, and then we'll kind of talk about this roster as well. So it starts off with Ryan Nielsen, defensive coordinator for him. He's coming over from the Saints as they're losing Dean Pease, who is retiring. Ryan Nielsen is coming over from the Saints scheme, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit more. But hopefully should improve this defense. They bring in Taylor Heineke, probably going to be a backup option, but worst case can come in, make some plays as they're losing Marcus Mariota. Their first round pick was Bijan Robinson, who could be an absolute game changer for this offense and for this team. And also bring in Mac Hollins, Scotty Miller, and Jonnu Smith to kind of help out the passing game as they're losing Lamade Zaccheaus, Damiere Byrd, Brian Edwards, and Michael Pruitt. In the second round, they draft Matthew Bergeron to help replace Elijah Wilkerson. And then there was a lot of change on this defense. They bring in Zach Harrison in the third round. They bring in Bud Dupree, Calais Campbell. They bring Caden Ellis over from New Orleans. They bring in Jeff Okudah, Mike Hughes. The fourth round, they draft Clark Phillips, and they even bring in Jesse Bates. In this defense, they're losing Abdullah Anderson, Rashawn Evans, Isaiah Oliver, and Casey Hayward. So overall, this is a team that targeted bringing in a lot of new defensive players and bringing a lot of defensive talent. So I do think that, at least on paper, this defense is going to be better. And then they bring in some more playmakers to help an offense that's been somewhat underwhelming. And obviously, with Bijan Robinson, you are super excited because, he seems like he's the real deal, and he's been compared to LaDainian Tomlinson this entire draft process. If you're getting LT with Arthur Smith, who obviously loved Derrick Henry, then you could have a really productive offense running the ball. Before we talk about this team, though, let's kind of talk about their coaching staff. So a lot of it's going to come down to Arthur Smith. He was a guy who was in Tennessee for the longest time, and he really picked up the Shanahan wide zone from Mike LaFleur and brought it over to Atlanta. He does leave a little bit to be desired in the passing game, but this run game is amazing and definitely should be really amazing, adding in what could be a elite running back. They also bring in they have Dave Rigoni, who's still here. He definitely has the Shanahan wide zone principles, but also spent some time with Matt Nagy, and so he kind of has more of that pro spread influence to him as well. But he's been here for a couple seasons now. And then we said they bring in Ryan Nielsen over from the Saints, who's doing this kind of 4-3 kind of aggressive bump and run coverage that they were doing there. They also could run a 3-4. They might be a little bit multiple, but they do have a lot of talent to be a 3-4 team as well. So we'll kind of see what they end up doing, but it looks like it's going to end up being it's going to be this bump and run that relies on some big, strong press man corners. Let's go ahead and talk about this offense real quick. And we're going to start off with the quarterback, Desmond Ridder. I think the overall ceiling of this team is going to be very limited with Desmond Ridder. He's just a very low upside guy. Doesn't have a lot of the physical traits to be an elite starting quarterback. But it's going to come in. It's going to have a high floor, low ceiling type guy. Is going to be able to run this offense at a very okay level. Think of like a real poor man's Ryan Tannehill. So I'm not really expecting much from the quarterback position. Desmond Ridder is not going to be a guy who's going to win you a bunch of games. I think best case you're hoping for Desmond Ridder is Alex Smith. Is really what you're hoping that you can get from him. Just be a guy who's going to come in, manage the game, get through your reads, run if you need to, and kind of just let the playmakers in the scheme take care of everything for you. So overall, I'm not expecting a crazy year from Desmond Ridder. I'm not expecting a super productive year. I'm not expecting him to really win a lot of games with this team. And I think they're going to, be fucking hell. And so, yeah, this is going to be a team that I think is going to struggle passing the ball. But, he can run the read option. He's got decent athleticism. And overall, I do think you're probably going to end up having the worst, if not the second to worst quarterback play. It's really a competition with Sam Howell or maybe Anthony Richardson off of the Colts. But I just don't think you're going to get a really high level of play from this quarterback room. They also bring in Taylor Heineke. He's a guy, if he comes in, we've seen from him is he can be a top 10 quarterback any week or unplayable some weeks. He's a guy that's going to come in, run around a lot, make a lot of plays. So if he comes in, I think that will increase the ceiling of this offense, but it also might decrease the floor just because he is very sporadic and an erratic player. But overall, I just don't expect you're going to get a whole lot of great quarterback play from this team. And then you talk about their weaponry. It does leave a little to be desired. Obviously, you still got Kyle Pitts here, who everybody and their mom is waiting to really break out and be, Travis Kelce level of production just because he is such an insane freak athlete. And we just haven't seen the production that a lot of people were expecting when they drafted him very early in the draft. But he's been a guy who's been really good. Marcus Mariota struggled finding him last year, but he's an insane athlete. He's top 1% of athletes in the NFL, and if given the chance, and hopefully with Desmond Ridder starting, will really be able to produce and thrive. So I'm excited. Obviously, you're still expecting a lot from him. I'm not ready to give up. I still think he could be in store for a really productive year if everything goes well for him. They also brought in Jonas Smith, who was in Tennessee for a while with Arthur Smith. Really good second tight end, an athletic guy who, aggressive in the blocking. They also bring in Jonas Smith. From Tennessee, who was with Arthur Smith before. It's a guy he likes. He's an athletic guy. He'll run block. He's really high effort in the blocking running game, but can also sneak out, catching passes, and is a really aggressive downhill runner. Between those two, we got a good set of tight ends. They also got Parker Hesse and Felipe Franks. Felipe Franks was a converted quarterback, not expecting much from him. And Parker Hesse is just a whatever third tight end who can maybe come in and block a little bit more than the other two guys. The wide receiver room, you got Drake London. They drafted him in the first round last year and had a decent rookie year. Didn't have a whole lot of production. Part of it was due to quarterback play. But he's a really solid wide receiver. Definitely could be on track for a Mike Evans-esque career here in Atlanta. Besides that, they bring in Scotty Miller, who was in Tampa and has kind of bounced around. Just hasn't really done a whole lot. He's a fast guy. He's a slot option, and I imagine he'll be able to help kind of do what a lot of what they were getting from Damiere Byrd last year, because he does have some speed to be a deep threat, but could also get open pretty quick, so that'll help Desmond Ridder. They got Mac Hollins over from Oakland. Is kind of a good number 3 or 4 wide receivers, expected to be the number 2 here. I think he will have a couple productive weeks, but overall I'm not expecting much from him. And then depth besides that, Frank Darby, Penny Hart, Kaderil Hodge, just not great talent. I mean, these guys can maybe come in, and I imagine Arthur Smith will find some creative ways to scheme them up. They also got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who's might as well just convert to tight end at this point. But overall, this weaponry, you're obviously excited. You have Kyle Pitts and Drake London, who are 2 really exciting players, 2 really young guys that can have really productive years. But outside of them, it's just not a whole lot of talent. I mean, Mac Hollins and Scotty Miller are okay. But I do think that the receiving options you have are very limited in what's already going to be a limited passing offense. So I think you pair that with Desmond Ridder. I'm not too excited for the upside of this passing offense. And, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, I think, are good players. Fantasy, though, I'd still stay away from them. I just don't know how productive they're going to be on a week-to-week basis. But overall, I think they're going to play well, even if the stats don't show it. Where you are excited about this team is this running back room. So obviously they bring in Bijan Robinson, who is the real deal. He is LaDainian Tomlinson. He has great elusivity. He's got great vision. He can turn poorly blocked runs into good gains. He can turn great blocked runs into touchdowns. He's a really good guy. And they saw when we saw in Tennessee when Arthur Smith had Derrick Henry, that Derrick Henry was a 2,000-yard rusher and taking over the league and unstoppable. And now Arthur Smith has his next Derrick Henry. But even outside of him, they got Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson, and Caleb Huntley. Tyler Algier had a very good year last year running behind this offensive line. I do think he's a little bit of a limited running back. And obviously, he has a really easy job behind this offensive line. But he can still come in and be really good and a tough runner. And then Cordell Patterson broke out for this team as well. Can run the ball, can catch, can kind of be a little bit of a matchup nightmare. And so this team really in general has a lot of guys who have a lot of flexibility. Cordell Patterson, wide receiver, running back. Drake London's a really big-bodied wide receiver, so he can play inline, he can play slot, he can play outside. Kyle Pitts is basically a wide receiver playing the tight end position. So they do have a lot of flexibility and can get really creative with this offense. For the likes of Bijan, Tyler, a lot of these guys benefit off that. And even they got Caleb Huntley as a fourth running back who played sparingly last year, but is still an exciting runner. So overall, I do think that the running back room adds a lot to this offense. And I think they're going to rely a lot on the backs of these three backs. I think they're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for this offense and hopefully make the job a lot easier for Desmond Ridder. But I mean, you can have Cordell Patterson out wide and Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson in the backfield, and then you can start getting real creative with what you're doing in the run schemes that this offense is going to run. So overall, I am excited for this offense because of those guys. I just do think that they have a low ceiling due to the limitations in the passing game. But this offensive line is a pretty good unit. They definitely are going to be the best run blocking unit or one of the top few run blocking units in the league. It's going to start with Chris Lindstrom, who might be the best guard in the league. He's an excellent run blocker. He graded out as the number one guard on PFF. He's just an absolute beast in the running game. And overall, just a great piece that you're happy to have. Then you got Jake Matthews, who's a well-balanced left tackle. And good run blocker, good pass protector. He's going to be really solid on that blind side, helping the young Desmond Ridder. And then you got Caleb McGarry on your right tackle, has taken some steps and developed. Definitely a better run blocker than pass blocker as well, but he's still been a really good tackle and graded out really well for this team last year. Where you do have questions is going to be this left guard and center spot. Obviously, they draft Matthew Bergeron in the second round. I think it was a tackle coming out, and they're going to play him at guard. He has the size to be a really good run blocker and will definitely be a better run blocker, but if he struggles, you have Matt Hennessy, who's a guy who was kind of a center for them and just kind of fell out with the coaching staff. But he's a guy that has good talent and could be a good run blocker for them if Matthew Bergeron is struggling a bit. Then they got Drew Dahlman, played pretty well for them last year. Same thing for them, though. These other guys, really good run blocker, struggles in traditional pass sets as well. So with this offense, I just don't think it has the ceiling due to the limited pass game to be a top offense. But I do think they're going to have a really safe floor. I think that's really going to be the issue with this team is high floor, low ceiling. So this is going to be an offense that if they're able to get 4 to 5 yards running the ball every single play, they're going to be really productive. And if they have a lot of third and shorts, I think Desmond Ridder is going to be able to pick those up, and this offense will be flowing pretty well. But if the running game is being stopped, then this is an offense that's going to really struggle. And then what are we going to get on third and long with Desmond Ridder? I think it's going to be really poor. So overall, I do think that we're in potential or in the range of the 16th to 20th offense. I do think we're going to have a really productive year from Bijan Robinson and these running backs, but, it's going to be hard for them to pass the ball, and I think that is what you need to be able to do in the NFL if you want to be a true playoff team and a really great team. I think they're going to struggle with that. But overall, I don't think you're going to get true bottom 5 offensive play from this unit. I do think they're going to be a little bit matchup dependent. I think teams that are going to be able to stop the run very well are going to be able to destroy this team. But if teams are going to be weak against the run, I do think that they're going to be able to take advantage of that and just pound the rock. However, I am a little bit more excited for this defense. So right now in our lads, it's listed as more of a 3-4, just because, Bud Dupree, Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie are more 3-4 guys. But could be more of a 4-3. Could be a little bit multiple, just because they do have a good amount of bodies on this D-line. And obviously, I think it's going to start off with Grady Jarrett, who's going to be the best player on this defensive line. A couple of years ago, he was one of the true star players in the NFL. And as this defensive talent, really fell apart around him, the last couple of years haven't been great for him. But I do expect a really big year from Grady Jarrett. I do think he's going to really step his play back up now that he has a lot more talent around him. It's really going to help him out. Because for the longest time, it's really just been him on this team. But I think he is going to really break out for this team. Just because there's so much more you have to worry about now. Because the last couple of years, it's been Grady Jarrett and me out there. You know what I mean? Like, it's been him having to do everything, and teams have been able to scheme around him. But now that there's a lot more people you have to worry about, I do think Grady Jarrett's in store for another really, really, really good year. So I'm excited for Grady Jarrett. I don't think he's going to be, Defensive Player of the Year, but I do think he's going to be one of the better interior guys. I don't think he's going to be on a Chris Jones, Aaron Donald level of interior lineman of getting after the quarterback. But I do think we could get back to a 50, 60 pressure season from him, just because I do think he has the potential to be that player again. And a part of the reason is because they bring in David Onyemata and Calais Campbell to help out this interior unit. David Onyemata is coming over from the Saints. He's going to be able to be a guy who's going to be able to get after the quarterback, but also defend the run really well. It's going to help out Grady Jarrett. And then they also bring in Calais Campbell. Not quite the edge rusher he used to be, but still is a great run defender at all of 6'7", 330. He's a big dude. You're just not moving him. He's still an excellent run defender. So I'm not expecting much from him getting after the quarterback. Probably be in store for another 30, 40 pressures, but as a run defender, he's really going to help this defensive line. I got Bud Dupree, who's probably going to start on the edge for them, more as a early down run defender, just because he's not really a guy who's getting after the quarterback much anymore, but he's going to be a really solid run defender. He's a big, strong dude. And then I think your main edge rushers for getting after the quarterback is going to be Lorenzo Carter and Arnold Ebiketie. Both are athletic guys. I think Arnold Ebiketie is probably going to take the steps up to be closer to your number one guy. I really don't see Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt guy in there. I do think he can be a guy that can get upwards of 50 pressures, and be a true number one, but not really a true elite guy. And Lorenzo Carter, I think, is kind of just a low-end starter, kind of a number two guy, really. So I do think this defensive line is going to do a really good job of defending the run. And just a little bit about how they're going to get after the quarterback, just because I don't think they have any true alphas or true number one guys on the edge. But I do think Grady Jarrett's going to have a really great year for them. And overall, I do think his defensive line is going to be pretty solid. They got Oda Kumbo, Ogundenji, Zach Harrison, Taquan Graham, who kind of be able to rotate in, defend the run, and hopefully they can develop as pass rushers as well. A really interesting piece they have, though, is Eddie Goldman, who a couple years ago for the Bears was a really great nose tackle and was absolutely destroying people on the defensive line, and was really hard to run on him. And then missed a year with the COVID year, fell off the face of the earth, and then missed all of last year, wasn't on a team. And he's coming back, so who knows what we're going to get from him. He could, break out and reemerge as, an elite nose tackle who defends the run well. Or he could, slow down and struggle a bit and not really be much of a help for this defense. He's a bit of a question mark. But the other pieces, you feel good about. You're just hoping Arnold Ebiketie or Lorenzo Carter will step up on the edge. But as I'm saying, I think this interior unit is going to be definitely a lot better at getting after the quarterback and defending the run, and you're just a little bit worried about the edge. But I think that's a pretty good front, line. I do think the linebacking unit isn't great and is going to let down this front seven a little bit. I think Caden Ellis could be in store for a really good year. He had a good year for the Saints last year, and I think Nielsen trusts him and definitely wants him here. So I do think Caden Ellis could have a good year. and Troy Anderson, Michael Walker, kind of just guys out there. Um, it's really going to be Caden Ellis or bust for this linebacker room. And you hope he can take steps up to be a top, 15, 20-ish guy at that linebacker position. I do think a lot of people, though, are excited about this secondary, though. Obviously, they have A.J. Terrell, who had an excellent year last year as a great man corner. And for a team that's going to end up running a lot of man coverage, I think you feel good about having A.J. Terrell here. They also got Jesse Bates, brought him over for Cincinnati. It's one of the top 5 best safeties in the league. He's going to be real safe on this back end and going to really help limit big plays against this team. The other spots, though, you do feel a little bit worried about. They got Richie Grant playing their other safety spot. And they got Mike Hughes, Jeff Okudah, and Clark Phillips kind of be at those other cornerback spots. Jeff Okudah coming out was the guy that, basically what Pat Surtain is what a lot of people expected Jeff Okudah. He was really great at Ohio State and has really kind of struggled since he's gone to the NFL. But I do think that a scheme that is very man-heavy is going to help him because obviously when he was at Ohio State, part of what he was so good at was man coverage. He was such a lockdown defender, and part of his calling card was the fact that he didn't allow any penalties. And so maybe he could break out and have a really good year. I just don't see it from him. He just hasn't been great. I think he'll be serviceable for you. I think he'll be a good player. But I'm not expecting the star or elite Jeff Okudah that people were expecting when he was drafted. They bring Clark Phillips in the 4th round. Bit of a safety, bit of a slot corner, kind of hybrid guy. Can do a little bit of both. I think you're going to see a lot more Mike Hughes early. And while Clark Phillips kind of settles in, he'll eventually probably take the spot over. But either way, I do think you'll get pretty good slot cornerback play from these two guys. Neither of them can really step out and play outside, but I do think they'll play pretty well in the slot for you. And then you got Darren Hall. It's kind of your 6th defensive back. He can play outside corner, can be more of a dime back. We'll kind of rotate in, be serviceable, but probably won't have a whole lot of snaps out there. And then outside of that, Trey Flowers and Cornell Armstrong can they're okay. They're 6th, 7th corners. You feel good about them, but probably don't want them on the field out there very much. So I do think this is going to be a defense that is going to take some steps up. I do think they are some really good edge presences away from being a great defense. So I do think we're in store for another kind of mid-ish team and another mid-ish unit. And so that's part of where I'm worried about this team is I think they're just going to be a good team that teams aren't going to necessarily want to play, but they're not going to be a team that people are necessarily scared of. So I think we're in store for a kind of a middle-tier offense and middle-tier defense. So I don't think it's going to be a team that's really going to have a whole lot of strengths outside of the running game. However, if you do like their schedule, they do have a pretty favorable schedule. They open up at home against Carolina and Green Bay before going to Detroit and then going to London for a game against the Jaguars. But then they have Houston and Washington at home before having to go to Tampa, to Tennessee. Then they have Minnesota coming home, and they have to go to the Cardinals before they hit their bye week. Now, when they come back from the bye week, they got New Orleans at the New York Jets, Tampa at home, at Carolina, Indianapolis at home, and then at Chicago and at New Orleans to end their season. It's funny, though. I think you can tell that this is a team that the NFL doesn't have a lot of hype for because every single game they play is at noon. They got no primetime games. Literally every single game they play is at noon. It's really funny. But it is a very beneficial schedule. Chicago, Indy, Washington, Houston are 4 of my bottom 5 teams. So you're hoping those games right there, it's going to be 4 wins. And then Carolina with a rookie quarterback week 1, I think that's a game that they could steal that easily just because, they're going to have a first-year quarterback and a, brand new head coach, so their offense could struggle. Then Green Bay against Jordan Love in one of his early career starts, I think that could be a game they win as well. I think at Detroit and then Jacksonville are going to be 2 tough games. And at Tampa and Tennessee are also going to be 2 really tough games just because I think those teams are going to be able to defend the run very well. Minnesota at home, I think, is a team they could run the ball on pretty well. I'm just worried about how they might be on the back end against that team. Then coming off the bye, I do think they're going to probably have their worst part of their season. The Saints They may not get after the quarterback well, but I think they can defend the run well. I think going to the Jets is going to be a really tough game. As I said with Tampa, I think they'll be able to defend the run well. I think I'd rather play Carolina early than I'd rather play them late. I think by the end of the season, they're going to have a lot of stuff really figured out. And then ending their season at New Orleans to try to make the playoffs, to me, I think it's going to be a tough game to try to win in New Orleans. And so their Vegas over-under line is at 8. My projections has them at 8.1. So, I mean, I agree with the line. I do see a world where they win 8 games. I think Carolina at home week 1, Green Bay is probably 2 wins. Houston, Washington, Arizona, Indy, Chicago. So, I mean, that right there puts them at 7. So if they can win another one of these divisional rival games, then I think that puts them at 8. And that's kind of exactly where I see them, as being a team that's going to be 8-9. I don't see this being a 10-win team. Could they go 9-8 and win this division? It's definitely possible. Could they be another 7-10, 8-9 team, though? It's, to me, what's probably in store for this team. Just because I don't think they have enough strengths or enough stars at their quarterback or their edge rushers on defense. So, yeah, I think 8 is a perfect line for them. And then kind of just recapping everything, Arthur Smith does have a lot to prove. He's a guy who had some hype when they brought him over from Tennessee. But these teams have been kind of mid in the last couple of years. In year 3, has a lot to prove that he could be a great head coach and to really get this offense rolling like people are expecting. I will think he will at least finish this year out. And I think year 4, if they go 7 or 8 wins again, I do think he'll be on the hot seat. But I do think Desmond Ridder is going to hold this team back. I think he'll be able to play within the structure of the offense okay and keep the ball moving. I just think in have-to-have-it downs is really going to let this team down. But they do have the potential to have an elite running game with one of the best run-blocking offensive lines in the league and with what could be a top 4 or 5 running back in total and one of the probably the best running back room in general in the NFL. But I do think this passing game is going to be poor just because their pass blocking is going to be great. Desmond Ridder is not going to be great. And outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts, you don't have a whole lot of great options. But this O-line's great. Definitely better at run blocking than pass blocking, but they're still going to be a really good unit. This defense could be really good. I just do think that the edge rushers is what's going to be holding them back. But I do think Onyemata, Grady Jarrett are in for really big years. But they do have an easy schedule. And in a weak division, in a weak NFC, I could definitely see them, fighting for the division. I just don't think they're going to win it just because I do think they're missing talent in these key important positions. But overall, Falcons fans, let me know where I'm right. Let me know where I'm wrong. Please subscribe if you stuck around for the entire video. And we'll be back very soon with our next video unveiling our 23rd ranked team. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon.